share a little something from Daniel chapter 3, and I bet you some of you know the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Heard that story before? But you've heard the names, even if you haven't heard the story. Daniel chapter 3, there's a king called Nebuchadnezzar, and he's a Babylonian, and the Babylonians were people that attacked God's people, and they carried him off as slaves for a whole, more than a generation. They were slaves in Babylon for 70 years. And Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were part of the Jewish people or the Hebrews who were part of that group. And Nebuchadnezzar, at one point, he decided to erect an image that was 90 feet tall, made of gold. Can you imagine how much that thing would be worth today? Wow. 90 feet tall. And he said, I want everyone, I'm going to have my musicians play music. And as soon as they do, he gathered all of the people of Babylon to this huge, great assembly. And he said, when they play, I want you to bow down and worship my image. And Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were part of that. And if you can imagine a sea of people, the musicians started to play, and they all... And there's 3 little guys standing out there in the middle of the crowd like sore thumbs. Not bowing. And I left out the part that Nebuchadnezzar had told them, if you don't bow, you're going to get thrown into this fiery furnace and executed. So there's Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And Nebuchadnezzar is actually a little more gracious than he needed to be. He said, bring those boys in here. That's my version of the story. And he said, come on into the palace. He said, now listen, boys, I'm not sure you got the message. I'm going to actually give you a second chance. I said that I want you to bow and worship this image when my musicians play, and if you don't, I'm going to throw you into the fiery furnace. Okay, so if you'll do it now, it's all good. No problem. But if you don't, I'm going to throw you in. So here's what they write, or here's what they say in response. Daniel chapter 3, verses 17 and 18. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God that we serve is able to deliver us from it. And he will deliver us from your majesty's hand. But even if he does not, we want you to know, your majesty. They're very polite. We want you to know, your majesty, that we will not serve your gods or worship the image of gold that you have set up. Now, I'm not going to tell you the rest of the story, but I encourage you, go home and read it. It's awesome. Okay? Here is what I learned from Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego about prayer. God can, God will, and even if God doesn't do it the way I thought he should, or the way I wanted, I will trust him. Because if he's got something better for me than what I'm praying for, I want it anyway. Right? I don't want mine if he's got better. It's all about living with the perspective of eternity. Right now, our light and momentary troubles seem like mountains that are last forever. But on the other end, on the other side, remember, this is just school. We're just learning how to live for Jesus in this life. On the other side, when we're looking back, we're going to say, I was upset about that. Really? Or if we surrender now, we'll look back and say, thank you, God, for leading me to surrender because you taught me so much about who you are. God can do anything. God will answer your prayer. And the more you become surrendered and say, Lord, I'm not trying to put you in a box. I'm saying, Lord, here's my desire. Your will be done. The more you'll see God work in response in your prayers. Because it's all about teaching you to love him and trust him and experience his goodness in your life. That's what prayer is all about.